Queen says, Hierete Spartans. Priestis says, Hierete Queen.
Achilles says, Hierete Queen.
Pirate says, Hierete Queen. Queen salutes.
Socrates salutes.
Asteria says, Herida, salutes. Here Queen. Queen says, smiles. It's nice to see you all. On this fresh autumn evening, Asteria says, it is a joy for our hearts and souls to see you as well. Queen says, let's not waste the time and start our weekly meeting, smiley face. Priestess says, are you discussing something?
Achilles says, the greater the difficulty, the more the glory in surmounting it.
Queen says, smiles at Ambassador as she walks by.
Alelangel soul says, Eurede. Salutes.
Achilles says, hark Socrates, Dionysus. Pay attention to your enemies, for they're the first to discover your mistakes.
Apella says, Queen Aurora is at the gate. Priestess says, Here Alelangel Sal. Pirate says, Here. Queen says, I once again welcome you all to our weekly Apella. Please be seated. As everyone has settled, she proceeds. Spartans, sons and daughters of our ancient land, I, your queen, stand before you in the sacred hall of the Apella. Here, beneath the gaze of the gods and the memory of our ancestors, we gather not as individuals, but as one people bound by the eternal flame of Sparta. What we decide here will not end within these walls, but it will shape the fate of our warriors, our children, and our land for generations to come. Asteria weighs the queen's words as she listens to her speech, and her gaze shows approval for what she is hearing. Queen says, "Therefore, let us remember that Sparta's strength does not lie only in the sharpness of swords, but in the unity of its citizens and the commitment of its leaders." And so before we begin our meeting, I call upon mighty Ares, Lord of War and Guardian of the Fearless, do bless the steel of our blades, strengthen the arms that wield them, and guide the hearts of our warriors, so that courage never falters and Sparta always prevails. Priestess shouts, "Hestia, you who tend the holy house of the Lord Apollo, the far shooter at goodly Pytho, with soft oil dripping ever from your locks, come now into this house, come, having one mind with Zeus the all-wise, draw near, and withal bestow grace upon my song. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. Hail Almighty Zeus the Thunderer! Hail all the gods of Olympus! We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all in attendance of these prayers." Queen says, with the favor of the gods I now declare this Apella open. May every word spoken here honor Sparta, and may our decisions carve a path of glory for our people. Hail Sparta! Hail Sparta! Hurroo! Hurroo! Asteria says, Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro! Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro!
Socrates says, Haru. Haru.
Asteria, her eyes widen as she observes the enlightenment wrapping Queen's body. Queen says, is there a talented Spartan who wishes to share their harp music with us today? Please come forward.
Alelangel Soul raises her hand and says, I can do it, my queen, if you let me to.
Queen says, go on, dear.
Alelangel Soul goes to the musical instrument in front our queen, sits and start to pass her fingers to the strings to make a delightful music for all presents.
Queen says, smiles slightly as the music fills air. Asteria says, her gaze lingers on the dress worn by the Councillor, seeming to appreciate the delicacy of the fabrics and how perfectly it matches the soft music filling the air. Queen says, asterisk ebudes asterisk. Asteria claps hands.
Alelangel soul enjoys to delight all present with her music arts, in special our queen.
Asteria seems pleasantly surprised by the Councillor's skill and applauds with a broad smile. Queen says, as the final notes fade, she inclines her head toward Councillor with gratitude. Your melody carried us into its spell and held us in wonder. Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Queen says, "We thank you for the gift of your art. You may now return to your seat." Applause.
Alelangel Soul stands up and bow respectfully. Our queen, I hope you enjoyed my humble music.
Asteria claps hands.
Alelangel Soul says, Eurede. Salutes. Alelangel Soul goes back to her seat.
Queen salutes. Who will be responsible for taking notes of today's proceedings? Asteria says, "This hand claims the honor for itself, my queen," she says, raising her arm with a knowing smile. Queen says, nods in approval, "Thank you, ambassador." Asteria says, "Most welcome." Queen says, "I now summon Hieros, Socrates, and Lammy to perform Apella opening prayers."
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. Today we will celebrate the anniversary of the Battle of Thermopylae and the sacrifice of the 300 Spartans, including King Leonidas, which saved civilization in the West.
Queen says, "Oh, that's nice."
Socrates says, "We offer libations of honey-sweet wine to Leonidas and the 300 Spartans." To ours. Unbreakable, strong-spirited, mighty and powerful demon, delighting in arms, indomitable, man-slaying, wall-battering, Lord ours, yours is the din of arms, and ever bespattered with blood, you find joy in killing and in the fray of battle, O horrid one, whose desire is for the rude clash of swords and spears. Stay the raging strife, relax pain's grip on my soul, and yield to the wish of Cyprus and to the revels of Laios, exchanging the might of arms for the words of Deo, yearning for peace that nurtures youths and brings wealth.
Asteria says, her gaze becomes intense as her thoughts turn to the great King Leonidas and the sacrifice of him and his men.
Socrates pours libations to ours. I hereby open today's session of Apella. Socrates salutes.
Queen says, "Thank you for the prayers and remembering our noble ancestor Socrates." I now call upon Councillor to provide her reports.
Alelangel stands up and goes in front the queen while she opens one of her scrolls.
Queen salutes.
Alelangel nods and waits the order of the queen to start her reports.
Queen says, "Permission granted."
Alelangel start to say, "This last Sunday we had our bard gathering. In the main plaza of Spartan Empire, a bard gathering was held that brought together diverse voices and attentive hearts. Citizens gathered at midday, when the golden sun illuminated the statues and the stone floor, creating an atmosphere suited for the living word. There, tradition and inspiration met in an open space for art and emotion."
Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Queen says, *****.
Alelangel keeps reading our four readers' shared verses that spoke of love, war, ope, and eternity. Amona 9 guests enjoyed all lectures with reverent silence and then with warm applause that seemed to echo against the walls of the ancient city.
Asteria claps hands.
Alelangel Soul keeps reading till the end. This last Sunday became a celebration of the word and of the human spirit. Those present not only enjoyed the finest poetry in the world, but also felt that, in every verse, all of humanity was present, united in a single heartbeat that transcended borders and time. We absolutely thanks our amazing hosts Saber and Jolie that always brings us the ambient to share the best poetry of the world, and close her skull and bows respectfully.
Queen says, very poetic words, Councillor. Seems staying among poets during summer affected you positively. Asteria smiles.
Alelangel Soul says we also have our Sunday training. I ask permission to inform it while take another scroll to open it.
Queen says, go on, sweetie.
Alelangel Soul opens her scroll and take a breath to start reading. With the radiant sun, two warriors met on the training grounds, carrying their weapons with firmness and hearts ablaze with fervor. The fresh morning air accompanied their first movements, measured strikes and steady steps that echoed on the sand like war drums. Each glance reflected determination, each gesture a promise of effort and self-improvement. Alelangel Soul keeps reading. In the middle of that intense practice, the attention of all was drawn to the presence of our general and our queen. Their figures, imposing and solemn, adorned the training with the greatness of their authority. The murmurs faded, and a deep respect swept through the place, while both of them decided to take participation in the intense training.
Queen says, training was truly refreshing.
Alelangel Soul keeps reading till the end with a firm voice. Our queen challenged us to prove that strength is born not only from muscles, but also from the mind and spirit. Or General, with nobility and pride, reminded us that discipline is the true standard of those who aspire to glory. Four of presence, Ambassador, Councillor, General and our queen, improved our skills in raids and teamwork, showing the strength of Spartan sons and daughters on our arena. At the end, the rivalry became respect and the satisfaction of our queen to see the develop of each warrior.
Queen says, hail Sparta! Hail Sparta! Haru! Haru! Asteria says, Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro! Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro!
Alelangel Soul says, Aro. Aro.
Asteria says, "It was really a joy for the eyes to see all of us reunited on the sand, wielding our swords."
Alelangel Soul says seeing all presents while closes her skull. Spartan Empire invites all presents to both events, Bard Gathering and Training, every Sunday. Hope to see you all, son and daughters of Sparta, in both of them, and bows respectfully to the Queen. That's all I have to inform in this day, my Queen. Eurede. Salutes.
Queen salutes. Thank you for your repartees, Councillor. You may now return to your seat. Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?"
Alelangel Soul returns to her seat with the scroll in her hands.
Queen says, turns her head to Ambassador, "I now summon Ambassador Asteria to provide management and army reports." Asteria stands up but with a slightly frowning expression, as if she were afraid of having to say something that is better left unsaid. but she walks in front of the queen as requested. Herida salutes. Queen salutes. Asteria says, "My queen, first, I must inform you about the progress of our population and the general conditions of the city, if you let me." Queen says, "Nods." "Go on, sister." Asteria says, "The population has not grown significantly, nor has there been any movement of foreigners, O Queen. It remains firmly under your rule, just as it was last time." Queen says, claps hands. Asteria says, "But within the walls of our city, a couple of events have taken place that deserve your attention, and I would like to mention them." Queen says, fixes her gaze on Asteria awaiting the reports. Asteria says, first, a feast led by our Hieros, who proved he knows how to make us dance, and not only in honor of the gods. This is what he wrote himself. Queen says, smiles. Asteria says, there was a Greek-themed dance party in Sparta on Wednesday, September 10th, with everyone enjoying a good time dancing to music which included the latest Greek hits, new tracks, urban and traditional tsiftatalia, and tracks from around the Mediterranean, with DJ Socrates Dionysus in the mix.
Dei Socrates Dionysus.
Priestess says, are you partying? Queen says, ****. Alright, I was there, smiley face. Asteria smiles and looks into her scrolls. Queen says, very cheerful music and time we spend. Asteria says, it was a nice feast indeed. One more thing to mention is how we all gathered at your call, O Queen, to hear your teachings on the dark creatures of the night. Queen says, it was a nice hour of tale indeed. Asteria says, and it was my honor to trace your words on a scroll for newborns to be taught our traditions. This is what I delivered to a messenger to be spread around. A journey through our traditions. Saturday, September 13th, 2025, 1:46 and 42 seconds a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. When night falls, dark spirits serve Hecate in the darkness. Impuzai and Lamia roam among us with faces of incomparable beauty, but evil nature. They crave the blood of our children and seduce our men to feed on it. Their whispered names inspire terror as much as desire. Our queen, in her wisdom, has gathered us together to warn us about the ancestral myths of our land. Her precious words are transcribed in the attached scroll. Be vigilant. Protect your loved ones. Queen says, very thoughtful of you to keep the classes recorded, sis. Asterisk applause asterisk. Asteria says, that is all I can report on our city. Queen says, nods. Asteria says, as your majesty is aware, I come before this assembly with a clear mandate, to speak truth about the delicate balance of power that surrounds our kingdom. As I announced last time, this balance has been called into question, and with your kind permission, I wish to inform you and the honorable citizens of the changes underway. Queen says, glances with curiosity at Asteria words. Asteria says, may I? Queen says, please proceed. Asteria nods and begins her report, accompanying her presentation with a few measured gestures. I have already given you the news about Egypt, but there is more to add. New barbarian populations have appeared on the horizon, and they are ruthless people, devoted to raiding and looting. However, good fortune is with us, as their sights are currently set entirely on Athens. I will now report the little information I have gathered about them. Queen says, new barbarians. She repeats after Asteria, her expression concerned. Asteria says, yes, my queen, new people we never heard of before, and very little is known about. I will say what I was able to learn. A band of warriors descended from the north and poured into Attica like a raging stream, devastating many fields and reducing several farms to ashes. They are as numerous as locusts and wield long swords and axes with skill and ferocity. They call themselves shadow hunters, and the shadow undoubtedly travels with them, O Queen, both because of the secrecy of their origins and the barbarity of their customs. Queen says, her eyes narrow as she listens. Shadow hunters, a grim name for a grim threat. If their fury falls upon Athens first, then Sparta must be watchful. Even the shadows dare not linger where Spartan blades gleam. She leans back slightly, her gaze steady upon Asteria. Speak on, sister, every fragment of knowledge is a weapon, and we shall need it. Asteria says, I have not been given to know more, O Queen, but although their fury is now directed towards our sworn enemies, I advise caution, for this is not a threat to be taken lightly, as you rightfully pointed out. I will try to find out more about them, but for now they remain shrouded in mystery. Queen says, "Your counsel is wisely spoken, sister. Sparta shall keep her eyes and swords sharp, even as Athens bears the brunt of this storm. Tell me, have you heard any other news that touches upon our borders or our allies?" Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Asteria says, "Yes, my queen, that's not the only population I must talk you about. There is one more." Queen says, "Tell me." Asteria says, "I can say more about these other people, because I have seen with my own eyes the land where they have settled. They are no less fearsome than the others, queen, for they are a race of pirates and sea raiders. These scoundrels who have given themselves the barbaric name of One Piece have spread terror along the coasts of Attica, plundering coastal villages and killing anyone who opposes them." Pirate says, "You are at Apella." Asteria says, "They are men without gods, without laws, and without morals, my queen, and they are led by a man named Giovanni, who is cunning and overly ambitious, leaving no stone unturned in his quest to increase the ranks of his followers. He had the audacity to speak to your ambassador and make a proposal that..." Asterisk, she is unable to finish the sentence and stops abruptly, lowering her gaze. Asterisk. Queen says. Her expression tightens as she hears the report, lips pressed in thought. Asteria says, "Now I hesitate to tell you the full content of this proposal, fearing that it may cause your majesty's face to flush with anger." Queen says, "Speak, sister. Do not falter before me, as I am ready to hear all that Giovanni dares to propose. No cunning or ambition, however bold, shall sway Sparta when the fate of her people is at stake." Asteria lets out a deep sigh and after a moment's hesitation says, "Your wish is my command, my queen." Raising her head, she begins to speak. "That man gifted me a sword, my lady, a blade forged by his own hands, and I was amazed at what those rough fingers had been able to create. Light as a feather, sharp and well balanced. A weapon worthy of a true warrior. As I slashed through the air, testing its quality, he said to me, 'I would be happy if you could fight alongside us with that weapon.'" I opened my eyes wide in surprise, my queen, and told him that my sword was only at the service of Sparta. Then he told me that I could fight while concealing my true identity, and I shook my head again and refused. Then that wicked man. She pauses, her voice trembling with indignation. "Oh, what supreme impudence! Had the audacity to claim that the army of Sparta no longer exists, and that it would be much wiser for me to join their ranks." Queen says, her gaze hardens, "A gift and a request such as this, bold yet reckless. I know this, ambassador, that no blade, no matter how finely forged, can sway your loyalty or the honor of Sparta. Keep your faith true, for a Spartan sword serves only Sparta and her queen." Priestess says, "Are you talking about combat?" Asteria says, "You know that I have no intention of betraying Sparta, and it was immensely foolish of that man to think he could tear me away from the land where I was born." But as I said, we are talking about scoundrels and villains without morals or honor. Queen says, her eyes flash with controlled anger, supreme impudence indeed. Let him learn that Sparta army is eternal, and that no deceit or lies can sway those who bear her blood. You did well, sister, to stand unwavering, so no shadow of ambition, however cunning, will bend a true Spartan to foreign whims. Asteria says, "I won't hide the fact that my first reaction was to plunge a knife into his neck, such was my anger. But I managed to control myself, O Queen. I was there only the time needed to gather valuable information." "I set sail on the first ship I found, in order to bring it back to you this very night." Queen says, nods. Asteria says, "And it is all I can say to this honored assembly. Hopefully I will learn more next days." Queen says, "Always put your safety first, sister. Anger is a weapon, but wisdom wields it best." At least while on mission. Asteria says, I have respected your wishes and stayed away from Athens, but I felt I had to fulfill my duty elsewhere. And don't worry, I can take care of myself, she says, turning a fierce gaze to her. That is all from me for this night, O Queen. I respectfully ask the permission to step back. Queen says, Thank you for your reports, Ambassador. You may now be seated. Asteria says, Herida, salutes. Queen salutes. If there are any individuals eager to have their voices to be heard within this gathered assembly, I let you speak forthwith. Citizens, your thoughts and concerns are not merely invited but embraced. Those who wish to do so may now come forward and express their concerns with us. Perhaps in the upcoming Apella gathering, there will be voices eager to express their thoughts and concerns, and we will eagerly lend our ears. For now, however, at the conclusion of today's Apella meeting, I shall recite words that were spoken in days past. Strike only when needed, but when you do, let it be with the conviction of Ares, who wastes no blow. Asteria smiles. Queen says. Taking a moment to gather her thoughts, she turns her gaze towards Hieros. I summon Hieros Socrates to offer the closing prayers for this Apella.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. To Apollon. Come, O blessed Paean, O slayer of Tychios, O Phoebos, O Lycorius. A giver of riches are you and an illustrious dweller in Memphis, O god to whom one cries aye. To you, O Titan and Pythian god belong the lyre and seeds and plows. Grinion, Sminthian, slayer of Pytho, Delphic diviner, you are a wild, light-bringing and lovable god, O glorious youth. You shoot your arrows from afar, you lead the muses into dance, and, O holy one, you are Barcos, Didymius, and Loxias too. Lord of Delos, I that sees all and brings light to mortals, golden is your hair and clear your oracular utterances. Hear me with kindly heart as I pray for people. You gaze upon all the ethereal vastness, and upon the rich earth you look through the twilight. In the quiet darkness of night lit with stars you see earth's roots below, and you hold the bounds of the whole world. Yours too are the beginning and the end to come. You make everything bloom, and with your versatile lyre you harmonize the poles, now reaching the highest pitch, now the lowest and now again with the Doric mode, balancing the poles harmoniously, as you keep the living races distinct. You have infused harmony into all men's lot, giving them equal measure of summer and winter. The lowest notes you strike in the winter, the highest in summer, and your mode is Doric for spring's lovely and blooming season. Wherefore mortals call you Lord, and Pan, the two-horned god, who sends the whistling winds. For this too, you have the master seal of the entire cosmos. Oh, blessed one, hear the supplicant voice of the initiates and save them.
Apella says, Socrates Dionysus is at the gate. Priestess says, are you discussing something?
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine to Apollon. I now call on Priestess Lamy to say closing Apella prayers.
Priestess shouts, I will sing of Zeus, chiefest among the gods and greatest, all-seeing, the Lord of all, the fulfiller who whispers words of wisdom to Themis as she sits leaning towards him. Be gracious, all-seeing son of Kronos, most excellent and great. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May Zeus and the gods bless this city, its king, its princess regent, its royals, and all of its citizens. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all who attended these prayers.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods.
Priestess says, Are you worshipping?
Socrates salutes.
Queen says, Thank you for your prayers, Hieros and Lamy. Queen salutes. I appreciate everyone who joined us in today's Apella. We may now conclude the meeting. I wish you all good night, she announces, rising from her throne. Asteria says, Good night, Queen. Queen salutes. Asteria says, May your rest be guarded by gods. Herida salutes. Queen says, vanishes beneath hidden Apella doors. Apella says, Aideen Odgar is at the gate.
Pairat says, Hello, Asteria.
Asteria says, Good night, Socrates, I must go too. See you tomorrow.
Socrates says, Good night, Asteria.
Asteria says, Herida salutes.
Socrates salutes.